All right, guys. So I got a couple questions on my last Q&A about TOS, and so I wanted to walk through in more depth a specific scenario that I had where we were able to address that and deal with it, and just give some basic principles that we used, and kind of like how we walked through that. So I'm gonna pull up on my screen here, see if I can get you guys a decent view of this. Okay, so basically, this was initially on September 18th. Athlete sent me a text. TOS is getting me again, man. I feel really tight in my pec area, close into my armpit, as well as left upper trap. So he gave me the notification basically that, like, hey, not feeling great. And then my response was, I just went ahead and adjusted the session I had in there for you today, thinking we back off loading and go more movement type work for a few days. So my basic concept or idea or thought process around this is when something like TOS pops up, there's things getting compressed, right? And so when things are getting compressed, think about like when we're loading heavy or when we're doing high output work that's like effortful, we're essentially causing our tissues, our fibers, or our system kind of like contract and put out effort, right? So it's like that's like binding or bounding and like tight. And so my thought process here was like, okay, if things are starting get a little bit bunched up there, let's back off. And so this is the example of like what I actually did. So these are the next three training days. So we did upper body joint moves, and description was backing off heavy loading here a bit, getting everything moving. We do 3 sets of 150 reps for each move on both sides. So 3 sets of 150, that's a pretty good amount of work. Purely looking to open it up and get that butter feeling back. Gonna repeat this 2 to 3 days in a row. And so we did it 1 day, 2 day, 3 days in a row, where we essentially just backed off the loading because of what I talked about earlier, where like there's a lot of compression going into that. So this is then, let's see, the first one was at 18th. So this is September 20th. He was asking some questions about can a tight pec minor cause an elevated first rib? Because pec is what has bothered me the most previously. And then he said external to internal on the side bumps. I forgot to mention that yesterday too, but I'm going to submit some video there. And then, see, my response is the tight pec can definitely pull the shoulder and arm forward a bit. That's the purpose of the joint moves we're hitting, to open that back up. Yeah, the rotation moves burn. Asking how it's been adapting. And then here said, I feel like it's working to calm down the pec, but the rib is just not moving at all. And I just finished my stuff. I stopped because I could feel my first rib hitting everything. So then at the end of that, I said, God, it will take a few days to back off completely and let that chill and calm down. I just went and moved the session and dropped a couple lower half days there instead. So basically the thought process there was like, so we hit those 3 days in a row, right? Where it was lots of movement there. Or backing off a little bit, there's lots of actual movement. And he mentioned that as he's doing that, essentially he's getting like a feeling of bumping or bruising in his rib. And so my thought process was like, okay, if he's starting to feel that, or if that's starting to flare up, we're gonna kind of like back off and actually let that chill. And so, I mean, these are like, yeah, the next that's not the next 3 training days, but like the next 3 training days, we basically did lower body joint moves and lower body work. Not so much heavy lower body loading, but more of like lower body joint moves, because we were still looking to kind of load off or uncompress and not like give a bunch of force into it, right? Or kind of like that squeezing, compressing, binding type of output. Because even if we're doing like a heavy squat, you're still tensing pretty much everything, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but in this specific scenario, that didn't seem like what we needed to do. So we went ahead and made that adjustment. And this is also a video that I sent to him in regards to what adjustments to make for the joint moves with the bumping that he was feeling. So this is a video that I sent to him through text. A little bit. So for that overhead position, if you're feeling like that bruise there, just go like a little bit less than where you start to feel that, and really think like scap up and underneath there to get that force into the bottom and back of that scap instead of up here, right? So it's like while it's feeling that bruise, like don't push into it, go a little bit less, and then get that like drive up and under and get all that force into that area underneath. So for that overhead position, if you're feeling like that, something to consider there is when like when we're doing exercise or when we're doing moves and you feel some type or some level of like discomfort, like if you're in this particular case, there's TOS symptoms as you're going overhead. As he was going overhead, he was feeling like a bumping sensation that was like hitting the rib. A lot of times the exercise that you're feeling it is what we use to actually correct and adjust for. It's just we change how we do the exercise. So in that instance, is like, okay, if that hurts or doesn't feel good, let's go a little bit less. Adjust slightly how you do it so that you don't get that bump, and then we can continue to go to work there. Because if we just like hit it in the exercise and then kind of like feel like we just need to change the exercise, well, the exercise itself is what presented it to start with. So we use that, or we can use that to move forward. So then this was back on the 27th of September. So this would be roughly a week later. And he left some feedback in TrueCoach for me, just looking like it opened up pretty good. I think I have a video of that. Let's see. Yeah, so this would be the video. It's a very simple video, but this is what we started to do a ton because he was having issues specifically in this position where it's like arm out to the left like this, and then elbow straight, just doing a simple overcoming iso. Like he's having a lot of issues with that where his shoulder felt extremely weak, and he's just like, this feels like it's opening up. So we really went like ham on that. I think I have so this is an example of a session that we did where it's session repeat 7 times today. Very simple. Goal is to unlock the clavicle and allow the back to actually pull, which means the front can lengthen and release. So again, remember, like he had kind of that pain or discomfort here. So it's like, okay, we're going to pull in this opposite direction, literally looking to shorten the fibers on the backside and lengthen the fibers on the front so that you can actually allow that to feel released and relaxed, and allow that to not be all bunched up and condensed there. This is just like, we didn't do this every day. This is just a practical look at what we did. And then at the end, so we repeated that 7 times. Basically, we went 3 minute, 3 minute slow lower deep push up, and then the same idea with the slow lower push up is like you're pulling down into position, and that lengthens that front, right? So he said, I sent the update on text, not the best day overall, but I think we learned a little about how to attack it. And so this was the text that I sent, which is like, I don't know what it is, but I just can't feel a good position in my shoulder with the slow lowers. I completely give out at like maybe a minute and a half. Trappy, nervy, all the above with TOS. Started originally feeling trappy, and then went to his ankle and felt elbow and went nervy. And then the response basically was there like, that's why we did him so often, because we're asking him, we're putting him in a position to actually have to figure out what it means to coordinate all that really well to where his body doesn't feel the need to present it. So it's fine if you feel things here or there that's actually necessary if you're not able to find good position, right? So understand that if I'm not able to find good position where my tissues aren't set up in a way in which like energy can flow through it, if I'm in a slower deep push-up and I'm not able to coordinate my body in a way in which like allows the proper like lengthening, shortening of different musculature around joints, around nerves, around those different things, that's when you're actually going to get feedback. And so the fact that he felt feedback didn't mean that it was bad. The fact that he felt feedback is like, okay, that is telling you what needs work and what we need to improve on and what we need to get better at. So specifically with his case, as I said, is like we eventually found that it was this exercise. Is this exercise where he was pulling back or pulling back here so that we could lengthen out here. So it's, again, similar thing in deep push-up where it's like the goal was to be able to kind of feel that and lengthen out, but he struggled with it at the start. Point is like, it's okay if you struggle at the start, because like that's actually something sometimes that's beneficial because it's an issue for you and that's why you're struggling with it. So eventually, let's see. So this was like a text here, which was at the end here. I'm really sore on my left shoulder, but I think if we continue to go after the lateral position on the left shoulder, it will clear up everything else with the TOS. I think that's been the missing piece of all the shoulder stuff. So this was an example of a session. Standing overcoming pec iso plus standing overcoming a reverse fly. I also press into the rope for a second, then relax for a second. Pulse reps in that manner, 50 pulse reps. Both directions per set. Do that for 3 sets. Spine holds, neck holds, because he's also having issues there. So he did that session like 5 times on that given day. So that wasn't every day, but that's a like sample of how we attacked it. Because one of the principles with that is, I realize this video is getting kind of long, but that's fine. We're going into depth. Like when something presents, we do need to hit it with enough. If you want to actually address it, we do need to hit it with enough volume and with enough change for your body to actually like have kind of like a shock or a change where it's different enough that it will allow it to actually change versus just changing 1 or 2 exercises. And it's dependent upon how serious it is, but this was something that he dealt with before. It's something that had popped up again when he started throwing, and we'd been lifting heavy as well. And so it was like, okay, we're going to actually hit it with some fairly different stimulus to give him a chance and opportunity, or his body a chance and opportunity to be able to adapt. My dog's thirsty, I guess. So wrap it up. This was, I think, November. It was around like November 17th or so. These felt great today too. I can feel it all started to clean up in the left shoulder. And so basically now today is January 19th. We're at the point he signed with a school to be able to play. He originally started his rehabbing from an elbow surgery. He had TOS before. It popped up as he was rehabbing through his elbow. And then, but yeah, so like it got fully cleared up. He's having no issues with it now, and he's signed with the school and he's going to play for them in the spring. So hopefully that gives some context of like more than the 60-second clip of what I was able to provide in the Q&A of just some of the actual day-to-day stuff that goes on when we're attacking specific issues. In this case, it's specifically TOS. It doesn't at all mean that that's how we'd attack every single TOS. As you can tell, like it was very dependent upon the feedback that he's getting, eventually the position that we found that he was weakest in, and then we really hit that. So that might be different for other people, but that's a little bit of a detailed look into how we go about finding that and what we specifically did in this case.